Yankee News coming to you from the world famous Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut. That's right. Sponsored by, the Greenwich Stamford Tea Party Patriots, as always. Now, gee whiz, there's so much to go over, but you know where I want to start? I want to start because about a minute or so before this, Carol has suddenly piped up and said, will we ever have a nuclear war? Now, Eric was quick to suggest the answer is no. I'm not so sure, but it is an important question. So, I don't know, I'll spout off. Some of you may have read the piece that I wrote concerning Russia and the invasion of Kursk. And I took the position that Russia's going to have to do something. If the Ukrainians continue to push further and further into the Russian motherland, they can't tolerate this. And if they don't have the military means to repel them, then that only leaves one other choice. That's right, tactical nuclear weapons. So that's my take on it, okay? Now, others may want to disagree. I don't know. Anyway, so let me jump to another thing here. So we have this ongoing effort to talk about globalists. So I was able to pull a little bit more time into making a better, are you ready, Kamala? A better Venn diagram. Okay, so here we go. The globalist Venn diagram for all you kiddies out there, all right? We're looking for feedback. I'm sure people have things to say about this. I'll just hold it up. So you got what we call hierophants, which are like shamans, priests, popes, religious figures that unify a group around a set of, quote, holy beliefs, so to speak, or not so holy. Then you have the tyrants, and then you have the sociopaths. So my argument is that you can take any globalist and decompose them into those three states. That's the argument, and I'm waiting to be challenged on this. Bring your rebuttals. So there you go. And the point is that in regular print, I'm saying that these are what they do, but then in quotes, I am suggesting the cover they use, the sheep's clothing they decide to wear. So for the hierophants and Satanists, they pretend to be secularists. For the tyrants, they practice phony compassion and buying votes. And the sociopaths will say, I feel your pain. Where have we heard that before? So, worthy of discussion, just keep it in mind. Meantime, now, with the power bills, first of all, go to Yankee T News, like, subscribe, donate, maybe someday buy our stuff, tell your friends. In the meantime, about the ongoing drama with the power bills in Connecticut, demand your money back, okay? As far as I know, the petition has passed the 60,000 mark. It could be 70,000 by now. But why don't you just give good old Ned a call and tell him that you want your money back, okay? So something to think about. Meantime, one other thing, all right, so as a part of this, there's an article. It's about how Fazio, State Senator Fazio and Ned Lamont are supposedly sitting down to come up with a bipartisan solution to this problem. Meantime, complaining about, oh, it's so complicated, I don't know. Dude, you can do it. You can really do it if you really try, rather than making excuses. Okay?
Why do we hear this all the time? It's always complicated.
Because they make it complicated, right? That's just it.
Well, isn't that a way to just kick the can down the road?
Well, no, it's creating a thicket, okay? A thicket of rules, regulations, procedures, technicalities, administrative standards, blah, 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 that keep you and me from getting results. All right, the big one tonight is what we'll call the Walls Project. We're going to talk a little bit about Tim Walz. I've been trying to come up with some way of sort of summing up this gentleman. He has so many different facets to his life and so many questionable parts, and that's putting it nicely. It's like a line from a song that was written by Chris Christopherson so long ago. And we refer to the main character in the song as someone who is a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction. Only in this case, it's mostly fiction. So, the first point, I'm going to go through the main elements, but the first point I want to make to you, dear audience, is that Tim Walz puts China over America.
Definitely.
Okay? Well, thank you. I like that. And so I'm just going to rattle off these elements. He is clearly a member of the captured elite. He is a closet communist. He is a coward because of his military service. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that he taught in China for many years. So I am pretty certain that he is fluent in Mandarin, yet we have never heard him utter a word of Chinese. He is, yes, ladies and gentlemen, just to pick up on the theme, a two-faced habitual liar. The military service, the Nebraska Award, the stuff about gay discrimination. And we'll see more lies coming out over the COVID scandal when they finally get around to getting him in front of Congress. And the thing to really keep in mind about his attitude towards China is that he's felt this way for a very long time, all right? By his own admission, he had said as a child, he was fascinated with communism, with China, with, yes, Mao Zedong. Who knew? Now, the other part that's very curious is we haven't heard him say anything about Taiwan. You'd think with all his love of China, he'd have some position on this. I searched on the internet, couldn't find anything. Maybe he'll have something to say. The other thing that's of concern, and this came out shortly after we started to learn about him, is that people quickly pointed out that he was the governor of Minnesota when the riots in Minneapolis happened. Now, we also remember that there was that video clip of his wife who, in some very weird way, was speaking sympathetically about the rioters. She referred to the smell of rubber and just the whole visceral sense of the violence and the fighting and the fire that was going on. He's no different. So I've had to come to the conclusion that he and his wife have some kind of sociopathic fascination with violence. So it's curious that he would love communism, love Mao, and it seems love violence. Now, the other thing that's very strange, and this has to be studied in depth. Isn't it interesting how he becomes so fascinating? This is the nature of evil characters. Evil characters are always fascinating. All right, it was on the 5th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square violence that he and his wife went to Tiananmen Square to get married. They did this on purpose. Who goes to a place where there was violence and murder to get married? What mindset is this? There's something wrong with him. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that he ran a tour company for China. He brought American students over from 1994 to 2003. It was called Educational Travel Adventures. So why he stopped in 2003, who knows? But I think it's interesting to note that through this time, he would have also been in the Minnesota National Guard. So those are the highlights. And I just have to conclude, he's not a patriot. He's not someone who loves his country. Everything here says he loves China. Now, the part that I find curious is when I try to imagine him, let's say he instead decided to move to China and become a part of the Chinese culture. I think it's fair to predict that he would have become a member of the Chinese Communist Party, and he might even have become a minor functionary in the Chinese Communist Party, if that's what he did. So, say what?
Advisor.
Yeah, advisor, yeah, some kind of thing, yeah. But you know, his job has been to try and turn America in the direction of China. Okay, so you know, he was all against the tariffs that Trump wanted to bring against China. He wanted to say that our relationship was indispensable. He didn't care anything about China's behavior, stealing intellectual property, anything else, didn't matter to him. So there's clearly something in him that is, as we say, not right and certainly not suitable for one of the highest offices in this land. So I'm going to say that wraps up my description of him. Just bad news, ladies and gentlemen, bad news. The next thing I want to touch on is the what's happening with these Venezuelan gangs. And I need to put them in context, all right? Because, first of all, I don't know if you heard, you probably did, about these gangs that are now attacking oil fields and stealing equipment, stealing copper, stealing diesel, taking equipment. And a lot of people are just looking at this and going, in Texas? They're getting away with this in Texas? Guys, where are you? You're supposed to be stopping these people. Why are you letting them get away with this? This is insane. All right, so that's one part. The other part has been I don't know what to call it. There's a sense of a storm beginning to brew in New York City, all right? It started like last week. We talked about the reports of the New York National Guards being stationed inside an immigrant hotel in the Bronx, I believe. No, Brooklyn. Or was it Manhattan? I think it was Manhattan. And the answer in the video, was it Mr. Goodman who took the video? And they said, we were here at the request of Governor Hochul. Yeah, now why would she have done that? So there's been a lot of speculation. I admit it. My first speculation was that this is going to be if Trump is sentenced, but we know that's been put off. So I was wrong. I admit it. But in the meantime, James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media Group reported they're acquiring this document from the Army. It's actually, technically it's in the public domain, but it's not, kind of a gray area. But the point is the U.S. Army is quite aware of these Venezuelan gangs. And there's an estimate. They now estimate that there's approximately 400 members of this gang. I'm trying to remember their name, Terran de Aragua, sorry. And 400 of them in New York City. Okay, I'm sorry, that's an army. It's a small army. Why are you allowing this to go on? Now, just to add to the complication of the story here, I said to myself, well, okay, there's the Venezuelan drug gangs, but what about the Mexican drug cartels? And so I said, well, let's do a little research on that. And according to the work of this pair of researchers, they estimate, nobody can be sure, but they estimate, based on their research, that there are about 150 Mexican drug cartels. Now, the Sinaloa cartel is the best known of them. And see if I can find, there were several others, about a half dozen of them that are considered prominent. But what kind of a jungle is this when you've got so many different drug cartels all competing with each other in Mexico? Meantime, these guys from Venezuela show up. How's that going to work out? Not well, just saying. Now, the other thing is, all right, first of all, another mea culpa. In all the excitement, we didn't get a chance to get the links up today, but we're going to have them up tomorrow. And one of them is for the J6 project, part of our continuing coverage of J6. So we found a link to X, which is supposed to be a live broadcast of what's going on in the jails for the J6 prisoners. However, when you go to it, it doesn't work. Maybe it'll work later, I don't know, but we'll have that link up. Meantime, now we have another project, thanks to Robert Kennedy Jr. We are going to have the MAHA project, the Make America Healthy Again project. And the first item I want to bring to your attention here is of concern. Somehow we have to fight back against this. Somehow. The CDC expecting 6-month-old babies to be injected with COVID vaccine. 6 months old. Are you out of your mind? Well, let me tell you about out of your mind for a second, okay? Stick with me on this. You had in September of, I'm going to say 2022. At the time, there was a debate over whether or not, or was it 21, to administer COVID vaccines to children. And so there was this 16 years old, 12 years old, under 12 years old. What do we do? What do we do? Okay, the FDA, the way it's organized is you normally have what's called an advisory board. A group of experts are selected by the FDA who are supposed to be objective in evaluating the clinical data. Just one problem, not a whole lot of clinical data, sorry, okay? So how are you supposed to decide? Well, what I'm about to tell you was so shocking, I still cannot get over this. You had sitting on that panel the editor-in-chief for the New England Journal of Medicine, who had the nerve, the gall, the insanity to say, we don't know, we're going to have to try anyway. Excuse me? Okay, it sounds to me like you, who I believe was an MD as well, are the editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine. It's like you've never heard of clinical trials. Wow, there is something wrong with you. Somebody got to you. Was it Pfizer? I don't know. I have no idea. But it's such a ill-considered and irresponsible statement to just say, we're just going to go ahead and have children take these so-called vaccines without further testing. It's inconceivable, but that was him. That's what he said. It's on the record. Okay, Maha? Yeah, Maha. We've got a lot of work to do. Fix this mess. Okay, so it shows when the CDC is saying something like this house has not been cleaned out yet. And by God, it needs to be cleaned out. All right. Yeah, the FDA is failing. Yeah, all right, so here's the thing. Here's the excuse. Oh, here we go. These COVID excuses just keep coming. Oh my God. Now, before I address this, I just want to quickly tell you that there's this thing, it's called the blood processing industry. As I say, if you go to the American Red Cross, donate your blood, they collect millions of units around the country. These units get sent to processing facilities, including one in Kankakee, Illinois, okay, where they will separate out the plasma from the platelets, etc. That plant, it turns out, parts of it had not been inspected by the FDA for 50 years. Okay? Blood products. What do you think, guys? Aren't blood products supposed to be safe? And the FDA hasn't done its part to, they're a regulator, but they also do inspections. And they didn't do it. 50 years. How does that happen? Okay, well, that's the intro. Let's get on to the follow-up. Now comes the news, and again, COVID is the excuse, that there's over 2,000 drug manufacturing plants that, I guess over the last couple of years, the FDA has not inspected. Wow. Wow. How is this happening? Okay? I mean, we have our theories. Should I go partisan? What do you think, Eric? Should I go partisan on this? Or should I just try and play it down the middle?
I think we should move on.
Do what? Just move on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Unbelievable. All right, let's move on to the education project. Okay, where did it go? Okay, here's the thing. The E1E2, all right. I'm working on a piece. It's going to go to some parents in some affluent schools in Connecticut at some point. So here's the thing. These parents who believe that their school system is so very good, right, that they have nothing to worry about. So don't bother us. Don't tell me that my school system is doing a poor job. Well, guess what? I'm about to tell you they're doing a poor job because of this story. The title is Remedial Math at Harvard. What? Yeah. College freshmen showing up so ill-prepared to study the sciences, their math is not up to standard. So now Harvard says we're going to have to do remedial math and algebra for these kids. Algebra they should have been learning in the 9th grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade. No, didn't happen. Didn't happen. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to take a minute to just think about this. Think about this. How is it that you have what's considered one of the top schools on the planet with an admissions board that has all these people applying? It's highly competitive. You know, they'll take 1 out of 20, and then the ones show up, can't even do algebra. Cannot do algebra in a top university in the world, on the planet, in the universe. How do you explain this? Okay? Well, I have an explanation. It's because lousy public education. But the harder question is, how did they even get in there in the first place? What happened with the SAT scores or the portfolios that they would have used to evaluate these kids? How did they miss this?
And how can
It's-
a 16-year-old end up graduating from college homeschooled
Yes.
because his parents knew what they were doing?
That's right.
And they didn't go to
Yeah.
the top college. They went
All right.
to one that almost the top. And they are doing better than any of those Harvard kids.
Yes, so true that, okay? So get this, just one little point here, and we will have the link up for this. It's from American Thinker. You've got to read this. Normally, if they're taking college level math, say calculus, maybe 1 class a week, maybe 2 classes a week, guess what? For the remedial, it is so bad, 5 classes a week, just to remediate, just to get them up to standard. That's how bad it is. So you parents out there who think your kids are doing okay because of your highly regarded public school system, you are deluding yourselves, okay? Deluding. All right, so I've got to jump to another thing here. Okay, when we put up the links, there'll be a bit about election fraud, okay? But here, just this one, illegal, convicted for voting. Okay, this person had stolen passport and created a fake identity so he could vote. We have the link here in Fox News. This is terrible. Meantime, next story I just want to quickly throw out there is that when I saw this, at first I thought, well, okay. So let's see if I can find the name of the company. It's a trucking company. They're in Illinois. Yes, here it is. Trucking company in Illinois. Midwest Transport. They are closing down. Okay, that's 480 drivers, 650 employees, 428 power units. Okay, this is not a small company. All right, and they're closing down. All right, well, let me offer up for you the snarky conspiratorial conjecture. I guess somebody else is going to have to deliver all those fake ballots, huh? It won't be this company because they wouldn't play ball. So, something to think about. And if there's any element of truth to this at all, okay, this shows the depth and the complexity of the Democrat effort to steal this next election, right down to driving the trucks with the fake ballots. Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. Where's the other thing I wanted to get to here? Okay, I just mentioned this other story. We'll have the link up. All right, the argument of this article was that is growing infertility irreversible. All right. If you look at the relatively long history now of birth rates declining in different countries around the world. First it was one country, then another country. And it's becoming endemic. That there is decreasing fertility in China, okay, which is going to redound on them pretty badly. What does this reflect? There are a lot of different explanations. I'm not going to get into them right now. But there's clearly something happening which is causing decline in fertility around the country. Some will say improved economic conditions. That's the old argument. I'm not so sure. Anyway, so that's it for now. And stay tuned because we'll be popping up with other things too. Thanks.